Hello, everyone. Um, this lesson is going to really hit on how to choose the right platforms, things to consider when doing so. We'll get into content and influencers as well. Uh, we'll continue to hit on influencers, but in today's lesson, it's going to be more about just examples of uh, influencers in terms of content. So let's get into it. Similar to last time, I'm going to try to share some news articles that I find of interest that have recently hit. And so I linked them here. The first one is TikTok is really looking at pushing its content developers to use landscape. The reason for that is it makes it more attractive for people who are watching TikTok on, let's say, a tablet or a laptop. Um, one of the reasons I picked this article of interest is it appears, and if you read the article, uh, TikTok, what they're going to do is they're actually going to give preferential treatment in their algorithm to content that is developed in landscape, right? So more suitable for a laptop or a tablet. They're also pushing developers to develop longer form videos, so 30 minutes or more. And my guess is um, they're really trying to, or they're looking to get more into long form video sharing. So YouTube, or even we talked about Rumble last week. So that's my guess. TikTok is trying to expand beyond just the short reel type of video clips that currently people take with their phones. Another interesting one is about Pinterest. Pinterest is trying to promote tips on how to improve in-app product listings. And the reason I included this is one, my guess is Pinterest is feeling a little bit behind the curve. Competition obviously is very aggressive, especially for advertising dollars. And so they're trying to do their best to help their current customers perform as well as they can in terms of advertising and driving shopping of products on Pinterest. And then the third article is with TikTok again, and just talking about their evolution with generative AI. Um, it's been in some of the news, but using voice AI tools, there are some concerns and some abuse, but they also look at it as could be a great way to increase content and, in essence, maybe people who aren't great at, like I'm not very good at giving online speeches. um, AI is going to be able to help that person be more competitive in that space. So an interesting article, um, and definitely has some concerns about um, misuse or abuse of basically dumb fakes with people's voices, and so forth. So let's get into what's important in choosing a platform. And we've talked about this a little bit in the past. I will also hit, and one of the things I'm trying to reiterate throughout the class is the fact that social media has so many options, so many things that you can do, so many neat tools, so many creative ideas. But at the end of the day, if you're trying to sell products or sell an image, you really have to look at who's your audience. If it's teens, if it's adults, if you're selling products to people who are on Medicare, right? You really need to know those customers. And just like with any marketing, knowing your customer is an absolute. And again, um, if you're selling to businesses, LinkedIn is a very good platform to consider. You still may want to use Facebook and X and Instagram to create that brand and engagement, but um, but LinkedIn gives you that kind of B2B social interaction. And then B2C, right? You may look at if you're selling, if your direct customer is the end consumer, um, LinkedIn may not be that great of an option for you. So again, you need to know your customer. And again, we've talked about that in previous lessons. You also need to set business goals. Like, what are you trying to get out of your social media marketing? Um, and I will say it's also a good idea to look at it in terms of short-term and long-term goals. Short-term may be, hey, you just want to get some brand awareness out there. Your sales team will handle engaging with people, but you just need more people to be aware of your company. And so you may set certain goals, and that may drive certain platforms, like maybe you do Instagram or YouTube. But then your long-term goals really you want to establish a strong lead generation process. And so that's where you would look at like Facebook has a good lead capture functionality. So again, you kind of want to look at your business goals and then align those goals with what platforms you're going to use and the the features that those platforms offer, as well as the audiences that they draw. um, Another point that you need to consider, and this is really important, I'm going to get into an example of Nike later. Nike is a huge company, huge marketing team. They use media agencies. They have a lot of capability and resources. If you're starting a small company, the reality is you're not going to have those resources. We even talked last lesson, we talked a little bit about the tools you can use. You may not have the funding to utilize those tools yet, right? You may be early in the evolution of your company, may not have generated enough revenue to invest in extensive resources and capabilities. And so you really have to look at what can you um, what can you manage, what can you create, right? Like if you have this vision of you know capturing a younger audience on TikTok, you have to create a lot of videos. Like influencers, the top influencers are generating a lot of content, a lot of video content, and so um, you just have to be realistic with those capabilities that you have at your disposal um, at the time that you're making decisions on platforms, right? You may not want to be in too many platforms. And then another thing you also need to do is you need to be aware that you're going to have to manage both the positive and negative comments that come along with it. Again, there are tools that allow you to, like Hootsuite allows you to manage comments and posts across numerous platforms. But again, you need the ability to actually purchase those tools. Um, and then also look at your industry and your competitors. What are they doing? Um, I will also point out that if they're not on a certain platform, maybe you should consider it. And that may be a new way to engage and find a new audience. And then finally, and this is a little bit after the fact, but again, social media is an ongoing evolution that's constantly changing, and your activities and your tracking should also constantly change. And so one of the things that you can do is you can monitor your audience. So who's coming to your pages, who's commenting, who's engaging, right? And almost all the platforms have some level of audience insights. And so what that gives you is the demographics, even sometime economic status, the country, um, the in some cases the professional background of the individuals, like LinkedIn, and you can look and see who's engaging with your content. Now, one of the things you want to also do with the monitoring and the data that you get from the audience insights is to really have an um, honest discussion with your team of, are you doing a good job of engaging the right audience? In some cases, you may be engaging, like for instance, if you're engaging people in another country where you're not even allowed to sell your product, well, you're getting good buzz, but you're maybe getting buzz with the wrong people, right? And so you have to look, all right, am I on the wrong platform? Am I using this platform in the wrong way? How can I target it better? And so forth. And so those are really some key basic things that you should look at when you're trying to decide what platforms to use. Um, and then we'll move into the platforms. Now, I've shared similar content and articles on the different platforms. I really, you should consume all these, and I'll send the slides out as I usually do afterwards. I'm going to just hit on a few that I haven't spent a lot of time on, and that's Snapchat. Snapchat is really popular with younger demographics. So again, companies who are looking at advertising to that population, Snapchat is great. Snapchat also, it's kind of known for its euphorial content, photos and videos that only stay published for a very short period of time, like 24 hours. And so it makes it a unique communication platform for younger demographics. And then Reddit, again, Reddit is a big forum style type of social media, right? It's a kind of it generates more discussions around certain topics. And so again, if you want to use Reddit to almost create more interest around a topic, then you can provide a product that supports that topic. So like I don't know, you know, new tire tread technology, and you're creating a forum around that, and then you happen to be selling tires, right? That is a good way to create that buzz around a topic, and then be able to follow up with advertising that drives to your product. And then next to or Nextdoor and WhatsApp. Nextdoor is a very geographically focused um, social media tool. I almost consider it like Facebook and Facebook groups. It's almost like Facebook groups, but to a specific um, zip code or neighborhood. I think what makes Nextdoor really great is for businesses that are selling to a very um, geo-focused audience. It's great. So like, people will ask their neighbors on Nextdoor, like, recommend a mechanic, right? So a mechanic may want to advertise on Nextdoor, um, and it's a good way to kind of almost benefit from friends and family referrals. And then WhatsApp, you could argue, is this really a social media platform or not? There's other messaging apps out there. I think the fact that there is a lot of wide sharing, even though not the same type of profile page setups that Facebook or TikTok or YouTube has. I do think it's at least worth mentioning as a tool that is being used to share content, right? It's still more private than um, the other platforms, but at least wanted to mention it. So then that brings us to Nike. So Nike, I wanted to find a good example of a company that, one, most people are familiar with, that has a really strong brand, but also that is kind of using the full force of social media. Um, and so I landed on Nike, and they are doing exactly that, right? So from a content standpoint, they're doing it all, right? They're doing live streams, they're doing reels, video, they're using user generated content and influencers. They're they're using it as a way to engage with customers with comments, questions, feedback. Um, they're listening. So we talked about matrix or metrics last time. One of the things, there are some tools that do what they call social listening. They kind of almost crawl the social media sites and um count on how many times your brand is being mentioned. Is it a positive mention? Is it a negative mention? Um, and that's great. So Nike's utilizing that. One of the tools is Keyhole. I highlighted here share of voice. That's one metric I didn't talk about last lesson. And what that is basically of all the times a certain product is mentioned, how many times is your brand being mentioned as part of that, right? And that's where you get kind of share of the voice. So um, if Nike is looking at it from like sports apparel, like how many times are people talking about sports apparel on social media, and how many times is Nike being mentioned in that compared to Adidas or Reebok or Under Armour, right? And so you get a percentage of voice, and especially from a public relations or very top brand funnel metric, this becomes an important one because it just gives you a sense of like, well, is our brand in the conversation, right? And ideally you want it to be positive, but if nothing else, you want to be in the conversation. If you're not in the conversation, then most likely your awareness is not going to be as strong as others. um, but again, Nike shares product launches and updates. Um, it obviously collaborates with its many athletes, football teams, college coaches, golf athletes, celebrities. They really do a good job of maximizing that coverage. They use different tools with customer relationships and loyalty. They have a number of different apps. The other really interesting thing, like in the title, they have over 200 different social media accounts. They also set up those accounts segmented on their different product categories. So they'll have like Nike running and um, Nike basketball, and like they're basically not just putting everything under Nike. They're putting it under different product segments and then running pretty extensive social media from that, right? And so um, they're almost creating little niche communities under the bigger Nike brand. And then they use it for customer support, um, and then uh, they they leverage a lot of the testimonials. Um, Again, and I'm going to go through a few examples, but one of the things social media um, increases the ability to um, kind of use the friends and family type of testimonials. People have a tendency to ask their friends and family, especially in the sporting world or into any type of kind of specialty niche, they're going to look towards their friends and family or people that they know are or at least semi well informed about that product. And so Nike does a really good job of that, leveraging um, that what I would call kind of almost the friends and family mentality of social media. So let's get into some examples. And they're on so many platforms, and there's so many versions. Um, I could be here for a really long time with all of you. So I'm going to just hit on a few what I thought were good examples. Um, and the links to the actual, now you'll need an Instagram account, but um, I included the links to the actual posts and contents because most of them are videos. But the first one, I believe this young lady is a basketball player. Um, but one of the things, so, a very personable, video clip, kind of fun, showing off some shoes, and you actually see in the comments someone asking about what that type of shoe is, and then Nike's able to respond and give like, oh, it's this, it's XYZ shoe. The other interesting thing is um, there's, I think it's this one. Um, there's even a comment that someone didn't get their delivery, right? Um, Actually, it's on the next example. But again, going back to managing social media, right? Like there is a team of people who are monitoring these pages and this content and responding to people from Nike. So the other one is a runner who won the Chicago Marathon, who's a Nike athlete. And again, this one is actually the one where someone said their shoes weren't delivered, and then Nike's responding to that. And so again, not really about this runner, but a customer, in essence, filed a complaint tied to this post, and someone at Nike had to respond to it. Uh, a couple more examples. So the stories example, they basically have a running coach, right? Who's providing educational and kind of expertise on running, which again, informative. People who are looking at getting into running or want to run their first half marathon, um, it's a great resource. The second one is really a influencer, like a brand ambassador, who's just doing a video of products that she has bought, and lays them out. If you watch the video, she lays them out on the bed. But if you look at the comments, you see someone commenting on the vest is great, right? So again, perfect execution of using a influencer to post about an outfit, which then someone in that person's network chimes in and says, I love the vest, right? And that can spur like, oh, you know, I should look into the vest, right? And that's a really great example of creating that buzz um, with an influencer. The other thing I did show was a template I found for Nike for its partner stores to run on Instagram. So another thing you'll find, like a company like Nike, who is very protective of its brand, the swoosh, how it's represented. They don't want like the local running store coming out with their own Nike ads and posting on Instagram. So this is an example of they're actually creating the ad for the local running stores or the athletic stores or even Dick's or uh, another Kohl's, whatever it is that one of those stores wants to run a sale on a Nike product. Well, Nike's going to provide an ad template so it stays within their brand image. And then finally, and again, I didn't even go to all the platforms because there's just too much. But I, I wanted to show different examples. Again, how Nike's even creating different pages depending on what they're trying to achieve. So um, Nike on X, I included a screenshot of their page itself. But they also have on X, they have Nike Store, right? That's Nike.com. So they create that designation between the brand Nike and the Nike Store, and so they can run, uh, they can share the content across the two, or they can put more of the shopping sales content on Nike Store. And I included a post that Nike liked, which again is a good example of just engaging with content that's already being developed. So if if nothing else, go out there, peruse Nike. They're doing, obviously, it's a super strong brand. I would be amazed if none of you have heard of Nike, if not, haven't worn a Nike product of some sort. They're very, very visible. And again, they're segmenting their interactions with social media based on what part of Nike are you talking to, right? Are you engaging with the Nike store? Are you engaging with Nike running? Um, there's just Nike Sports, and so forth. And then that brings us to of course they're on YouTube. So included a video here, and um, it's so again, Nike's using social media in so many different ways. So if you watch this video, it's basically a guy going through the warehouse collecting like shoes that have been lost. And it's kind of an interesting interesting video, an engaging video that is outside of the normal sports, right? So everything else I've shown you has a strong tie to sports, right? Uh, the the lady who won the Chicago Marathon, the basketball player, the influencer who's about to go for a run, like all that's very tied to sports. But then they create video content that is more entertaining about life in the warehouse of Nike. So again, really good example of a very robust social media marketing uh, effort by Nike. Would require a lot of resources and uh, investment and human capital to manage it all. They obviously do it very well. They're tapping into key tools that allow them to do it efficiently. But if you're a small business, maybe to do all of this is going to be a lot. But maybe you pick and choose and get some ideas, and it becomes a starting point to evolve to. So that's my example of Nike. So this week's assignment is going to be a little different. I'm going to ask you to go out to a brand's social media platforms, right? So pick a brand, hopefully a relatively well-known brand or established brand of whatever it may be, right? It could be a car, it could be furniture like IKEA, but just go out and visit at least two or three of the different social media platforms that they're using, right? So if it's Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or TikTok, and just and I'll give you some questions to answer, but just kind of assess this brand. Hopefully you like it if you picked it for your assignment. That it's just assess kind of how they're using social media, what type of content, who do you think they're targeting? Are they creating different pages? Like Nike has so many different pages on a platform, um, or are they a little more simplistic? So again, it's going to be the assignment this week. I'll post it by Thursday. Um, it's not intended to be a difficult assignment, but more a discovery assignment to kind of learn a little more about how brands use social media. The other thing I am going to ask as part of the assignment is I'm going to do it as a discussion because I'd like everyone to share what they learned about whatever brand they picked, right? And so again, I'll post more details by Thursday, but just wanted to give you a heads up. So like always, if you have any questions, shoot me an email. Otherwise, thank you, and I hope you have a great week. Bye.